I'm sure I'm not the only person in this room who, as a kid, thought that I could read people's minds or close a door using telekinesis. But what if I told you our childhood delusions weren't so far off? Because theoretically, in this world, you can read around 40 people's minds. And this is possible using a technology called BCIs, or brain computer interfaces, which is a device that is able to measure information from your brain and send information to your brain. Now, 40 people in this world currently have implanted BCIs. So how do they work? This is a neuron. Our brain consists of 86 billion neurons, and each neuron can connect with other neurons through synapses. One neuron can form up to tens and thousands of synapses. And in total, our brain consists of 100 trillion to 1 quadrillion neural connections, forming what we know as the neural network. And neurons can communicate with one another through sending electrical currents. These electrical currents form electromagnetic fields, which then can be measured by BCIs. So an example of non-invasive BCIs are EEGs that can measure brain activity through electrodes on the surface of the head. This is not a torture device, but one of the first invasive BCIs, known as the Utah array. It consists of 100 microneedles with electrodes at the very tip, and those who have been implanted with the Utah array are able to control a cursor or a prosthetic limb just purely by thought. Not only can the Utah array measure input from the brain, but it can also send input to the brain. So for instance, for individuals who might be blind, implanting the Utah array at the back of the eye or the visual cortex, it can stimulate or activate neurons that initially would be activated by light, giving blind individuals their ability to see back. The problem is, implanting the Utah array means taking off a flap of the brain and inserting it through brain tissue. And the Utah array, for every one neuron that it can stably measure from, it actually kills hundreds and thousands of neurons. And this is known as the Butcher ratio, which is the number of neurons destroyed by the BCI device compared to the number of neurons successfully recorded. This is used as a measure of efficacy of BCIs. Of course, scientists have found other measures to access the brain. One of them is through synchron, which is initially placed through the jugular vein, where it then travels to a vein at the top of the head adjacent to the motor cortex, where it expands into this mesh-like structure and electrodes pressed against the blood vessel, where it's able to measure brain activity from the motor cortex beside it. Yes, it has a Butcher number of 0, but it only contains 16 electrodes compared to Utah array's 100 electrodes, meaning it's only capable of reading information from the brain, but not writing to the brain, or sending information to the brain. Now, to address the elephant in the room, Neuralink. Neuralink is made up of polymer threads. So each thread is around the size of a human hair, consisting of 16 electrodes. You have around 64 threads, adding up to 1,024 electrodes. Those who have been implanted with Neuralink are able to even play computer games such as Mario Kart or chess, simply purely by thought. Of course, the problem is you're implanting multiple threads into brain tissue. The brain doesn't appreciate foreign objects. So in one of the first few patients implanted with Neuralink, these threads retracted from the brain, meaning that it moved from its original implanted position because it was rejected from the brain. So much to be done here. Electrocorticography, or ECOGs, are probably one of the most promising BCIs up to date. Essentially, it's a grid containing electrodes that is put under the skull on top of the brain. It's capable of decoding speech to words at a rate of 78 words per minute. That's faster than some of us can type. Of course, you guessed it, there's a lot of problems with this. For instance, long-term, it can add pressure to the cortex, which can cause bleeding. And we know what happens when there's bleeding in the brain. So, currently, scientists are researching biohybrid engineered neurons, where we take a stem cell, we develop it into a neuron, but we incorporate the BCI component into it. And we find that these biohybrid engineered neurons can actually synapse normally with our native neurons. So what does the future have in store for us? On one hand, the tens of millions of individuals who are paralyzed might be able to regain some level of autonomy and independence. But on the other, we might lose mental privacy and be subjected to potential manipulation of thought from external sources. Who's to know? Food for thought. Thank you.